As the guests settled into their seats, the reception hall buzzed with the clinking of glasses and murmurs of joy. The newlyweds, glowing with happiness, took their places at the head table. When my son stood to deliver his speech, a hush fell over the crowd. His hands trembled slightly as they gripped the edges of the podium, his eyes filled with an earnest intensity that unsettled me. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice steady yet carrying an undertone of emotion, "today is the happiest day of my life, and I want to share something personal with you all." The room was silent, all eyes fixated on him. I felt a knot of anxiety tighten in my chest. He paused, gathering his thoughts, and then continued, "Growing up, I've been surrounded by love, guidance, and support. But there's a truth about my life that has remained hidden until now." His eyes found mine, and for a brief moment, I saw the vulnerability of the little boy I had raised, now cloaked in the form of a man. The anticipation in the room was palpable. I exchanged a worried glance with my husband, who squeezed my hand reassuringly, though I could tell he too was uneasy. "I've always felt a connection to a man who wasn't my father," my son admitted, his voice softer now, but every word resonated like a thunderclap. "And it has led me to question my identity in ways I never thought possible." A wave of confusion washed over the guests. Whispered speculations filled the gaps between his sentences as he elaborated on moments from his childhood that hinted at secrets long buried. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a letter, its paper worn and creased. "Recently, I discovered something that has changed everything I thought I knew about my life. The man I've looked up to all my life is, in fact, my true father." Gasps rippled through the crowd. My head spun, and I was momentarily blinded by tears that fought to escape. This revelation, out in the open, seemed surreal, tearing at the fabric of the life we had so carefully woven. As whispers grew, I struggled to collect myself, my hands clutching the table for support. The weight of secrecy and inadvertent deception bore down on me. My son's voice faded into the background as I retreated into my thoughts, the room blurring around me. He continued speaking, his words a distant echo. "I don't share this to hurt, but to heal. To begin anew, on this day of all days, surrounded by the people I love most." Applause erupted, a hesitant yet hopeful gesture from those who understood the gravity of such revelations. I felt my heart swell with conflicting emotions, pride in my son's courage and despair for the facade that had crumbled. Suddenly, my husband rose from his seat. "I knew," he confessed, his voice echoing in the now silent hall. "I knew all along." His words hung in the air, a chilling admission that jolted me back to reality. The room seemed to sway as my world shifted once more. I was caught in the crossroads of betrayal and long overdue truth. The faces of friends and family blurred as I scanned the room for understanding, for some semblance of familiarity in the wreckage of our reality. Each face mirrored my shock, my despair, as the implications of this truth settled on us all. The wedding that began with celebration now brimmed with tension and uncertainty. Each smile carried an undercurrent of unease, each laugh a strained attempt to grasp normalcy. It was a day I would never forget, for it marked the beginning of our collective journey toward reconciliation and understanding, a day when the scales tipped towards truth, regardless of the pain it unearthed. The room felt suffocating, and the weight of my husband's confession hung heavy in the air. It seemed as if everyone held their breath, waiting for someone to break the oppressive silence. My son's eyes darted between us, his once confident demeanor now tainted with vulnerability and confusion. He, too, had not expected this revelation, and it now seemed as if nothing was certain anymore. I wanted to speak, to demand answers from the man I had spent decades beside, but my voice was trapped beneath the shock, my mind racing with questions. How long had he known? Why had he kept it a secret? What else had been hidden behind the smiles and tender moments we shared throughout our marriage? As if sensing the turmoil within me, my husband reached over, attempting to take my hand. I pulled away instinctively, the betrayal cutting too deeply. "How could you?" I whispered, though the words felt inadequate to express the storm swirling inside. "It wasn't my secret to tell," he replied quietly, his voice barely audible over the hushed murmurs of the guests. I was waiting for the right time, I guess I never found it. The fragility of our constructed world seemed more apparent with each passing second. The room brimmed with prying eyes, the whispers swelling like an unwelcome tide. I imagined the conversations that would buzz long after the wedding was over, the speculation, the judgments that would follow us. Yet amidst the chaos, a strange sense of clarity began to emerge. Our lives were in disarray, their foundations shaken, but the truth, however painful, had been laid bare. I glanced at my son, who stood resolute despite the upheaval. His bravery was undeniable, and I felt a surge of admiration for his willingness to embrace vulnerability in pursuit of authenticity. The wedding reception carried on around us, albeit with less enthusiasm. Guests returned to their meals, unsure whether to celebrate or console. I watched my son and his bride whisper privately, their bond seemingly strengthened by the revelation. They were charting a new course, unburdened by the shadows that had loomed over our family. Unable to sit still any longer, I excused myself and slipped outside, the cool air a welcome balm against my flushed skin. The night sky stretched vast above me, stars twinkling like silent guardians. I needed a moment to think, to process the whirlwind of emotions battling within me. I wandered the manicured grounds, the gravel crunching underfoot. My thoughts drifted to my son, my heart ached for the confusion he must feel despite his poised exterior. How does one reconcile a lifetime of memories shaped by lies? The sound of footsteps approached, and I turned to see my husband, his expression a mix of guilt and determination. "I'm sorry," he began, his voice tinged with remorse. "I thought I was protecting you, protecting him." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "Protecting us? We deserved the truth, however painful. Did you think this was your burden to bear alone?" He sighed, the weight of years pressing upon him. "I was scared. Scared of losing everything, of shattering the family we built. I thought I was doing the right thing." The irony was almost laughable. "And now?" I asked, the bitterness not entirely masked by my attempt to remain composed. "Now, I realize the truth sets us free. But at what cost?" His eyes met mine, filled with a depth of regret I couldn't ignore. We stood there, the silence between us heavy with unspoken words and shared history. For the first time, I saw him not just as a husband who had deceived me, but as a person, flawed and human, grappling with his own fears and mistakes. "I don't know where we go from here," I admitted, the vulnerability raw and real. "But I know this can't undo everything we've built." He nodded, understanding that our path forward was uncertain, yet acknowledging that it was a path we had to walk together, regardless of the past. We slowly made our way back to the reception, now more for the sake of appearance than celebration. The air was tense, underlined by the fragmented echoes of the earlier confession. Yet amidst the unease, there was a sliver of hope, a possibility for healing and new beginnings. As the evening drew on, the mood of the gathering gradually shifted. Speeches resumed, laughter found its way back into conversations, and the dance floor filled with guests eager to lose themselves in the music, if only for a moment. But beneath the surface, an awareness lingered, an understanding that nothing would ever be quite the same again. Later, as the festivities wound down and guests began to depart, I found myself seated next to my son. The world seemed to pause, and I seized the moment to speak words that had crystallized during the evening. "I'm proud of you," I said softly, my voice laced with genuine admiration. "What you did today, your courage, your honesty, it's more than I ever could have asked for." He nodded, his expression a mixture of relief and gratitude. "I didn't want secrets to define us, not anymore." "And they won't," I assured him, my heart swelling with maternal pride. We sat together, gazing out into the dwindling crowd, our silence a shared comfort laden with a promise of healing. As the last notes of music drifted through the night air, I knew the journey ahead would not be easy. Our family had been irrevocably changed, but beneath the wreckage lay an opportunity, a chance to rebuild on the foundation of truth. The night drew to a close with a sense of tentative hope, each of us taking steps toward understanding and forgiveness. The road was long, the path littered with challenges yet to be faced, but I was ready to face it, hand in hand with the people I loved most. Our lives would never return to their previous state of perceived perfection, but perhaps they didn't need to. In their place was something new, something real and unfiltered, something worth fighting for. The lessons of the day echoed in my mind as I drifted to sleep. The truth had emerged from the shadows, and though its light was blinding, it illuminated a path forward, a path to redemption, to forgiveness, and ultimately, to love renewed through honesty and understanding. In the weeks that followed the wedding, the world outside seemed oblivious to the seismic shifts within our family. The sky was just as blue, the routine sounds of life continued unabated, but inside our home, an undercurrent of change flowed, reshaping relationships, testing old bonds, and forging new ones. The first few days were a blur of emotions. My husband and I, navigating the tension that had settled like an unwelcome guest between us, struggled to find a way forward. Our conversations were tentative, often peppered with pauses that carried the weight of unasked questions. Yet amidst the uncertainty, there was a shared determination to face the truth together. One evening, as the twilight cast long shadows across our living room, I found my husband sitting alone, an old photo album resting on his lap. He was lost in thought, the flickering light playing across his face. I approached him softly, peering over his shoulder at the photographs of our son, snapshots of milestones, smiles, and moments we had cherished. "We have a lifetime of memories here," I said, breaking the silence that enveloped us. "It's hard to reconcile them with what we know now." He nodded, eyes still fixed on a picture of our son as a child, his innocence captured in a frozen moment of laughter. "Every time I look at these photos, I see the life we built for him," he said, his voice tinged with regret. "I wanted so much for him, for us." "We can still have that," I replied, focusing on the memories, not the fractures. "It may look different, but the love and memories are still real." He sighed deeply, finally meeting my gaze. "I know I should have said something sooner. I was afraid of what the truth would do to us." "Do you think keeping it hidden was better?" I asked gently, searching for understanding. It was a question that had lingered since the revelation, a question that needed an answer for us to move forward. "No," he admitted, shaking his head. "I see now that it was wrong, but at the time, I convinced myself I was protecting you both." His honesty felt like a small victory in the battle for our future. "We can fix this," I said softly, placing my hand over his. "It won't be easy, but we can rebuild." As the days turned into weeks, our efforts to mend the fractures in our family became more deliberate. We talked, sometimes through tears, sometimes through laughter, often through long periods of quiet reflection. My husband and I both attended therapy, separately at first, then together, guided by a skilled therapist who helped us untangle the web of secrets and emotions that had ensnared our lives. Meanwhile, I reached out to our son, eager to understand his perspective, to offer whatever support and love I could give. Our conversations were enlightening. He was navigating his own journey toward acceptance and understanding, just as we were. One afternoon, we decided to meet at a small cafe, a neutral ground where we could speak freely. As we sipped our coffees, I marveled at the man he was becoming, strong, insightful, kind. "I hope you know how proud I am of you," I began, watching his eyes light up with surprise and gratitude. "Your honesty at the wedding, it was brave." He smiled, though it was tinged with wistfulness. "I didn't plan to say any of that. It just felt right in the moment. But I was scared, too, afraid of hurting you, of what it might do to us all." His vulnerability was a testament to his maturity, a reminder of the challenges he faced. "You followed your heart," I said, reaching across the table to take his hand. "And it was the catalyst we needed for change. Thank you for having the courage to speak your truth." He squeezed my hand, and in that simple gesture, I found the strength to believe in our ability to heal. We talked for a while longer, sharing memories and dreams, finding solace in the fact that love, though tested, endured. The relationship between my husband and our son was slower to mend, each tentative step forward requiring patience and understanding. They met several times, often for long walks that stretched into hours. Gradually, the trust that had been fractured began to rebuild, piece by piece. It was a slow process, but the effort they were both willing to invest gave me hope. Throughout this journey, I discovered an inner resilience I hadn't known existed. The bonds within our family, tested to their limits, now seemed to strengthen under the weight of honest acknowledgement and the promise of forgiveness. Still, there were moments when doubt crept in, times when the enormity of the truth felt like too much to bear. During those times, I turned inward, reflecting on the family we were creating anew. It wasn't always easy, but I reminded myself that each step forward was meaningful, even if small. As the days turned into months, a new normal began to take shape. We celebrated milestones, created new memories, and, slowly, the rawness of the past began to fade, replaced by a shared determination to build something lasting. One evening, as we sat down for a family dinner, the laughter filling the room felt genuine, unburdened by the shadows that had once lurked at the edges. My husband and son exchanged knowing glances, their bonds slowly reknit, stronger for the trials they had weathered together. As I looked around the table, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. This wasn't the family we had imagined on that fateful wedding day, but perhaps it was something even better, an authentic, imperfect tapestry of love, woven together by resilience, truth, and a commitment to healing. Each of us had been changed by the revelations, humbled by the realization that truth, once released, demanded we confront our fears, our mistakes, and our hopes. And in doing so, we had found a path back to one another, forever altered, yet richer for the journey. As the months continued to pass, the seasons changed, and with them, so too did the emotional landscape of our family. The winter had been harsh, filled with moments that tested our resolve, but spring brought a renewed sense of hope and possibility. Our lives, though still marked by the remnants of past secrets, began to blossom with the promise of new beginnings. The impending birth of my son's child, my first grandchild, became a powerful symbol of renewal. It was a gift of life and love, an opportunity to create new memories and deepen the bonds that had been so tested. On a crisp morning, the sun not yet fully risen, my husband and I found ourselves headed to the hospital, our hearts pounding with a blend of anticipation and anxiety. The car ride was mostly silent, save for the rhythmic hum of the engine. We both sensed the significance of the day, a chance for another chapter to begin, untainted by past shadows. Our son greeted us in the waiting room, his expression a portrait of nervous excitement. "It's time," he said, his voice tinged with awe and a hint of youthful fear. He led us to the delivery ward, where his wife lay surrounded by the controlled chaos and anticipation of new life about to be born. As we sat by her side, offering what comfort and encouragement we could, an overwhelming sense of unity washed over me. Our family, once splintered by secrets, was coming together in the most profound way. With each contraction, I could feel the past slipping further behind us, replaced by an undeniable sense of shared purpose. When the cries of our newborn granddaughter finally filled the room, the relief and joy were so palpable that tears flowed freely. She was perfect, a bundle of possibility and innocence, untouched by the burdens of the past. I held her for the first time, feeling the depth of love and connection that surpassed anything I had known before. She was a clean slate, a fresh canvas upon which our family could paint a story of love, resilience, and second chances. As I handed her to my husband, I watched a transformation occur. His face softened, and the weight of guilt and regret seemed to lift, replaced by unwavering love and devotion. It was as if our granddaughter had granted him absolution, a permission to forgive himself, to embrace the good within despite past mistakes. "We're going to do this right," he whispered to the tiny bundle in his arms, a promise not just to her but to all of us. It was a pact to honor the truth, to nurture with honesty, to love unconditionally. After the excitement of the birth, we gathered in the hospital room, our family now expanded, the atmosphere filled with love and laughter. My son, his wife, my husband, and I exchanged quiet glances, the unsaid understandings passing seamlessly between us. We had walked a difficult road to get here, but we had arrived together, stronger, united. The days that followed were filled with visits, each more heartwarming than the last. Our home, once subdued with the weight of tension, now resonated with the joyful cries of our granddaughter. She was a beacon of hope, a reminder that despite the trials we faced, life moved forward undeterred, full of potential and joy. As we settled into this new rhythm, I found myself reflecting on the journey of the past year. It had been tumultuous, a whirlwind of revelations and emotions, each moment demanding resilience and introspection. But through it all, we had held on, sometimes by a thread, but always determined to come out stronger. One evening, after our granddaughter had finally fallen asleep in her crib, I sat with my husband on the porch, wrapped in the comfort of a shared blanket, the stars twinkling above us. The air was cool, the night silent save for the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. "I'm glad we didn't give up," he said quietly, his hand finding mine and giving it a gentle squeeze. "We've come a long way." "Yes, we have," I agreed, the truth of his words warming me more than the blanket could. "I think the hardest part was realizing that sometimes, the things we think will break us actually make us stronger." He nodded, his gaze steady on the night sky. "We've got a lot to be grateful for." We sat in silence for a while, each lost in our thoughts, the past and future blending seamlessly in the present moment. The peace I felt in that space was profound, a testament to the healing power of time and love. Finally, my husband shifted, drawing me closer. "I want to make sure we never forget what we've learned. That we keep building a life that honors the truth and the chance we've been given." "I couldn't agree more," I replied, my heart swelling with a mix of contentment and hope. This is just the beginning. Our journey had taught us much about forgiveness and resilience, about the importance of truth, no matter how hard it might be to face. We had learned that perfection was not the absence of flaws but the courage to face them, to admit when we are wrong, and to strive continually to do better. As the night deepened, I felt a shift within me, a release of the lingering doubts and fears, replaced by a certainty that everything would be all right. We had weathered the storm, and now there was nothing but open sky and endless possibilities ahead. I leaned into my husband, content to watch the stars and dream of the future, knowing that whatever it held, we would face it together, armed with love, honesty, and an unbreakable bond that had been tested by fire and emerged gleaming and true.